Let's just dive right into this explainer and tackle a genuinely terrifying moment. You know the exact one I'm talking about. You're sitting in your contracts final, you're staring at this completely blank page, and you're reading a massive, totally chaotic fact pattern. Maybe it's about a construction project gone horribly wrong, or, I don't know, a shipment of bicycles that arrived 3 weeks late. And suddenly, your mind just goes completely blank. Your heart starts racing. Where on earth do you even begin?
Well, we're going to answer that today by introducing a pretty much foolproof, stress-relieving blueprint. It organizes your analysis perfectly. Because here's the secret. Acing a massive contracts essay, it isn't just about knowing the black letter law. It's really about knowing how to structure your answer, so your professor can basically just hand you those points.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll be covering the Plump Framework, conditions, waivers and excuses, anticipatory repudiation and risk, discharge and breach mechanics, calculating the remedies, and finally, acing your contracts essay. Let's get right to it. Section 1, the Plump Framework, PCARDBR. Let's start with the big picture and the absolute lifesaver mnemonic that's going to save your grade when the clock is ticking. I want you to memorize this exact phrase. Plump cows always roam down bumpy roads, PCARDBR. This is literally the backbone of your entire essay. It gives you this perfect step-by-step path to follow right after a valid contract is formed, and you got to figure out who owes what to whom. So we've got performance, conditions, anticipatory repudiation, risk of loss, discharge, breach, and finally, remedies. Honestly, write this acronym at the very top of your scratch paper the absolute second your exam begins.
Now, the P in our framework stands for performance, and this is exactly where your essay analysis needs to kick off. First things first, identify the black letter law for the standard of performance. If we're talking about a contract for movable goods, so governed by the UCC, you've got to apply the perfect tender rule. That means delivery has to be, well, absolutely perfect. But if you're dealing with the services or construction contract under common law, then you apply the doctrine of substantial performance. This basically means if someone does the job with just a few trivial or technical defects, they haven't materially breached. They still get the contract price, just minus a little offset for whatever that minor defect was. Nailing this distinction right out of the gate, absolute game changer for scoring points.
Moving on to Section 2, conditions, waivers, and excuses. The C in PCARDR. So heading down our bumpy road, we hit C for conditions.
While performance is the actual duty, conditions are the triggers or the limiters for that performance. The really crucial thing to grasp here is the massive legal difference between a simple promise and a condition. Look, breaking a promise just gives the injured party a right to sue for damages. But an unfulfilled condition, that literally excuses the other party from having to perform at all. It's a total performance discharge. Think about it like this. If I say, I'm going to buy your house if it passes inspection, that inspection is a strict condition. If it doesn't pass, I don't buy the house, period.
Let's look at how high the stakes can get with conditions in the real world. This is actually an excerpt from the contract in the famous Burger King versus Family Dining case. So Burger King gave Family Dining this massive, incredibly lucrative 90-year exclusivity territory, but it was strictly conditioned on a 10-year development schedule. Family Dining had to build exactly one restaurant per year for 10 years. Well, Family Dining fell behind schedule, and Burger King tried to use that unfulfilled condition to completely terminate the 90-year exclusivity deal. It was a total high-stakes corporate hot potato.
But thankfully, the law has some safety valves. The court actually saved Family Dining by using the doctrine of extreme forfeiture. See, Burger King had already waived some of those early delays. They didn't strictly demand literal performance right at the start. So suddenly enforcing that condition later on would cause an extreme, totally unfair forfeiture of the 76 years Family Dining had left on their exclusivity deal. So what's your big takeaway for the exam? Always check if a strict condition might be legally excused, either by a prior waiver or because enforcing it would cause an extreme forfeiture.
All right, Section 3, anticipatory repudiation and risk. The A and R. Let's see what happens to our framework when a party threatens to walk away early. That brings us to anticipatory repudiation. When you're writing your essay, you definitely want to drop this black letter law from Drake versus Wickwire and Restatement Section 250. It says an anticipatory repudiation has to be an absolute and unequivocal announcement of non-performance before the due date. Just expressing some anxiety? Yeah, that doesn't count. It has to be a crystal clear, definitive, I will not perform. And when that happens, the injured party is immediately off the hook for their own future performance, and they can sue for damages right then and there. We also need to do a quick pit stop at the R, which stands for risk of loss. You just need to ask yourself, who pays if the goods are destroyed by some crazy supervening event before they even arrive? To figure out whose wallet actually takes the hit, you'll need to clearly define whether it was a shipment contract or a destination contract. Now for Section 4, Discharge and Breach Mechanics, the D and B. So if performance wasn't discharged by some impossible or unexpected supervening event, which, by the way, is the D in our framework, we officially arrive at B for breach. And here is an absolutely crucial rule to remember. Any non-performance of a contractual duty without a valid excuse is a breach. Every single time. But, and this is a big but, the gravity of that breach is what dictates your very next move in your analysis. Keep this golden rule in mind. If the breach is material, you stop and you sue. The injured party gets to suspend their own performance immediately. But if the breach is just minor, which links right back to that concept of substantial performance we talked about, the injured party actually has to keep performing their side of the deal while seeking damages for that little shortfall. So you continue and sue. Honestly, misidentifying a minor breach as a material one is a classic trap, and it will definitely cost you major points on the exam. Up next, Section 5, Calculating the Remedies. The final R. We finally made it to the end of our mnemonic. Remedies. This is where we figure out exactly how to make the injured party whole again. So, what does this actually look like on your paper? Well, you need to state the black-letter law super clearly. The standard remedy is monetary damages, specifically designed to satisfy the expectation interest. The whole goal here is to put the injured party in the exact same financial position they'd be in if full performance had actually happened. Oh, and make sure you explicitly state that punitive damages are universally unavailable for a simple breach of contract. Professors love throwing that in as a trap, so please don't fall for it.
And here is exactly how you calculate it. Expectation damages generally equal the contract price minus the market price. Let's say a buyer completely repudiates and cancels a $1,000 bicycle order. The seller uses good faith, reasonable efforts, but they can only find a substitute buyer willing to pay a market price of $750. The seller then recovers that $250 shortfall from the original buyer. Boom, you've just calculated expectation damages.
Section 6, Acing Your Contracts Essay, Putting PCARDBR to Work. All right, let's pull all this theory together and translate it into a high-scoring strategy. How do we actually put these plum cows to work on your paper? When you're faced with one of those massive fact patterns, use this 4-step attack plan to perfectly structure your paragraphs. Paragraph 1, identify if the standard is perfect tender or substantial performance. Paragraph 2, spot any express conditions and check if they were excused by waiver or extreme forfeiture. Paragraph 3, classify the breach. Is it material or minor? And paragraph 4, calculate those expectation damages. See, the PCARDBR Mnemonic basically writes your paragraph headings for you. And to really polish things off, start using these exact transitional phrases in your writing. Honestly, imagine you're a seasoned attorney standing right in front of a judge. Write things like, under the doctrine of substantial performance, or because this is an absolute and unequivocal repudiation. Using phrases like this proudly signals to your professor that you aren't just lazily summarizing facts, you've actually identified the strict black-letter law and you're applying it like a pro. Look, contract exams are literally designed to overwhelm you with information, but by letting those plump cows guide you, performance, conditions, anticipatory repudiation, risk of loss, discharge, breach, and remedies, you can take any chaotic scenario and turn it into a perfectly structured argument. So the next time you're staring down that blank page, take a deep breath, write down PCADBR, and just start walking down that bumpy road to a perfect score. I'll leave you with this. Are you going to let the chaos control you, or are you going to let the plump cows lead the way? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy studying.